Bienvenidos, welcome, benvenuti, baseball friends. Thank you for joining us at our first digital at bat here at HomePlate 33 podcast. I'm your host, DJ Guarenas, creator of Guareneo en 3 y 2 en español and HomePlate.33 in English on Instagram. Let's talk baseball.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is your Home Plate Podcast. Baseball from north to south.
Hello, baseball fans around the globe. Happy New Year to all of you. And we wish you plenty of fastballs down the middle so you can hit it out of the park with ease in this 2025. How are you guys doing? Are you guys excited? Pitchers and catchers reporting less than 45 days. Baseball is just around the corner. It's already January 7th, 2025, and today's a very special day for us, not just because pitchers report pretty soon to spring training camp, but it's because we finally joined the digital baseball diamond. And I know it took long enough, but we wanted to make sure that we had everything ready for you and great content to provide to you when we launch this new podcast. And we're ready. We're here. We're here to not only listen to you, we're here to make sure that we keep you up to date like we do on our weekly Talking Baseball Thursdays with our flash summaries, and also in our Fridays with our live at honroneros.new, our live in Spanish baseball analysis that we do every week. But this is our first episode of the week, episode 1 of HomePlate 33, the podcast powered by Guareneo en 3 y 2 in association with Honroneros team. I'll be flying solo today, but I'm never alone because my friends at Accessorios Corp, they'll be there every step of the way with my door-to-door shipping needs to Venezuela. Accessorios Corp, your best option in Miami. As the show evolves, we'll have lots of baseball minds here. We'll have friends, we'll have players, we'll have executives, broadcasters. They'll be joining us to zone in and paint the black one baseball talk bit at a time, like our friends at Pinto Web, your online paint portal in Venezuela. So with that said, why a podcast? Why now? Simply put, because listening to the comments that you guys actually left us at our Instagram live every week at honroneros.new, the comments that you gave us and the feedback that you gave us when we covered the Choque de Gigantes in Miami. Not everybody has the time to sit there for 1 hour and not being able to actually flip between your applications when you're looking at Instagram lives. So we listened to you, and we wanted to make sure that you can listen to this at the gym, while you're driving, so you can rewind it, stop it, play it anywhere you want. So we'll bring it to you in as many platforms as we can. We'll have the video version of this on YouTube. The audio version of it will be on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So definitely we cannot be more excited about this opportunity to bring you our analysis of the situation in the baseball world. But first thing is first, let's explain how we do things here at HomePlate 33, the podcast. Since every episode is not like the other, we treat each episode like a full baseball season. What does a full baseball season have? Well, every season has spring training. That's where we'll bring introductions to our guests, unveil our topic lineup, and give you the trivia question of the day. Then we'll go into opening day. Well, opening day is like Christmas for baseball fans, right? So that's where we're going to give you that high-level summary of the topics that we'll be discussing. We're actually going to lead into our first topic, and then we're going to get you guys going and warmed up and ready to go for the regular season. Then we're going to go into the regular season, which is the part that we all enjoy of baseball. So there's that we're going to actually lean into a pitch and discuss baseball topics from the base path. So think of it as you will. We'll make sure that we bring you every angle from that particular topic. Like, for example, today we're going to be talking about the trades and who won in this winter off-season, quote unquote. And then we're definitely going to go through that. After that, we're going to have the All-Star break. Everybody needs a break, so it's snack time at that time. So we'll give a shout out to all of our sponsors, and we'll give you a hint for our trivia question. Then after that, we go into the trade deadline. That's always an exciting part of the season. And then we will call the bullpen for, so we can actually keep mowing down those baseball topics. Then we're going to go into the postseason. So we will actually discuss there things that happen outside the norm of the field, situations, contracts outside the playing field. For example, if a new team is actually getting a new stadium or their stadium is actually changing their name, things that they're definitely going to catch your eye. They're definitely off the field. Like, for example, today we're going to be talking about that decision from Sammy Sosa of apologizing after such a long time to go back to the Cubs. But we're definitely we're going to discuss that, and we're going to discuss that in the postseason section of the show. And then the World Series, which is it's what everybody plays for. That's where we're going to give you like an executive summary of the situation of the podcast, what we discussed, bullet point, pretty quick summary there, and then we'll give you hints of all the topics that we're going to be covering in the following podcast. We'll open the floor for you to give us feedback for comments. And last but not least, we'll give you the answer to the trivia question of the day. And just in case we go into extra innings of baseball talk, we have the off season, and that will be able to cover that section. So let's get pitchers and catches to report, and let's get to spring training now.
Spring training.
Welcome to spring training. Well, there you go. Like we mentioned on our previous section, we're definitely going to review the topics that we're going to be covering at the podcast today. Well, today we're going to review those big signings and trades that happened in the last few weeks, last few months, because it's been very, very active this offseason all over the majors. We'll definitely discuss who are the winners and the losers, in our opinion, in those early movements. Technically, who won the winter in preparation for the regular season. Then we're going to go into our next section, the state of the diamond, like we call it, in this particular time. So there we're going to discuss the situation of the Toronto Blue Jays, and then we're going to take a break and talk about our sponsors. We'll give you the hint that we talked about, and then after that we're going to talk about the Seattle Mariners and their state of the diamond for them, because it's quite an interesting one, because they've been in a bunch of free agents and offering more money that they ended up taking, and they haven't actually gone to Seattle. Maybe there's a reason for it. Then after that, we're going to be talking about the MLB teams. They're going to have trouble filling up their stadiums, not because they don't have enough fans, it's because they don't have a stadium. And those are the Tampa Bay Rays and the A's, because they don't have a Oakland A's, because they're not all the Oakland A's anymore. So those guys. Then outside the baseball lines, we're going to discuss, like we mentioned before, the situation with Sammy Sosa apologizing to the Cubs and their fans. Interesting move. We don't know exactly where that's going to go, but we'll definitely be talking about that later on. And then to wrap it up, obviously, we're going to give you the answer to the trivia question that's coming up and what's in stock for our next podcast. That definitely won't be something flying solo for that one. So the trivia question of the day, here it's brought to you by Accessorios Corp, is who is the only Latin American born player in Major League history with at least 300 steals and 300 homers? That's our trivia question of the day. We'll give you another hint in terms of who that person might be during an All-Star break. And then we'll give you the answer at the very end of the podcast. So now you're caught up with spring training. Pitchers are ready, catchers are ready, hitters are ready to hit, and let's go into the regular season.
Opening day.
All right, opening days here. Should be a stat holiday, but you cannot win them all. So here we're going to give you a high-level summary of what we consider are the most influential trades and signings that have happened in the last few days. We'll go team by team. Not in a specific ranking, but obviously the most important ones will actually go first. And we'll start, and I'm pretty sure you know why. We'll start with the Mets. They added a bunch of pieces to their lineup. They added Juan Soto, one of the biggest contracts in Major League history. No deferred money. That's definitely an interesting move there in terms of trying to build that winning culture in in Flushing Meadows with Carlos Mendoza at the helm. They took another Yankee away from them in Clay Holmes. Interesting move there, because apparently they want him to start and not exactly close like he did in New York. So that'll definitely be an interesting move that the Mets are going to have to make as the season starts. They get Frankie Montas. They added another pitcher in Griffin Canning and Canadian Jared Young. They bring back Manaya. So they definitely added enough pieces to make a difference there in what they lacked in the postseason. Even though there was not much, they were very close to making the World Series. But you guys know exactly what happened, and the Dodgers definitely prevail, and they won it all at the end of the day. Another one that had made interesting moves, in my opinion, one of the most improved teams in this offseason are the Boston Red Sox. They added Walker Buehler. They had Sandoval, lefty, that pitched for the Angels in recent memory. But he's not going to be starting the year with the team. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery. Another interesting piece, they brought Aroldis Chapman into the fold. I don't know if he's actually going to be closing, but he's definitely going to be that closer setup role there in Boston. Huge improvement there. And they added a couple of more pieces in Giovanni Moran and pitcher Vygotsky. I don't know. I apologize for the pronunciation there. Definitely an interesting one there. Obviously, moving on to the defending world champions, the LA Dodgers. They added Snail. Really? Snail? They definitely added Snail to their rotation. They bring back Teo. They bring back their closer, Teenan, and they added infielder Hee-Sung Kim from the KBO League. Apparently, he's a phenomenal infielder. I don't know where he's going to play. Either going to play second base, but they definitely have Monzi and Lux there as well. So they have a lot of flexibilities, and they showed that in the World Series, but they definitely added this piece. And they added Michael Conforto as well. So they're going to be having another right fielder. Apparently, there's a streak since Bonds retired that they're going to have a different left fielder every season since Bonds retired. I don't know if it's true, but I read it somewhere. So, an interesting tidbit there. The Yankees, they added a lot of pieces, especially after they lost the Soto sweepstakes. A lot of people in the Bronx were absolutely gutted that Soto didn't return to the Bronx. In my opinion, I never thought he was going to come back to the Bronx, not because he doesn't have the skills to go back to the Bronx, but it was a matter of the luxury tax, and obviously they didn't want to defer money. It was a lot of circumstances that didn't make me feel that he was going to come back to the Bronx, and he didn't. Ended up with the Mets, but I think they did a really good job in terms of filling that void left by Juan Soto, because they added, listen to this, Paul Goldschmidt, Max Fried, Devin Williams. Yes, that Devin Williams, the closest for the Brewers. Yes, that guy. Alex Jackson. They bring Puerto Rican fireballer Fernando Cruz. The guy, it's lights out. He was pitching for Cincinnati last year. That guy's lights out. So he's going to be one of those guys in the back end of that bullpen that is going to be shut out after shutout. They bring Bellinger from the Cubs. I never saw that trade coming, but it adds some flexibility if they want to move Judge to right field and get him off his legs, or if they want to move and play Bellinger in left or first base, if they don't want to give Dominguez that shot at left field. Huge signing there, in my opinion, and or trade for that matter. And they bring back Loaiza, which is was to be expected. In terms of Detroit, they signed Gleyber Torres. Gleyber had offers to go different places to play third base, but he decided to go to the Motor City to turn double plays with El Mago in Detroit. So we'll see how that trade kind of pans out, but it was a 1-year deal. So we'll see how that actually works out in the Motor City. The A's, I don't know if I call them the Sacramento A's for the time being or just A's, but let's call it A's just to avoid any issues. They add Severino, they add Jeffrey Springs from Tampa, and they add Gio Urshela, giving them a little bit of flexibility on the infield because Gio can play first base, can play third base, can even play second base if they need it. Another team that added a lot of pieces in the offseason, in my opinion, becoming that powerhouse again that took them to the World Series a couple of years ago are the Texas Rangers. They added Jock Peterson. They traded for Jack Berger. They did an amazing job with the Marlins last year. They bring Kyle Higashioka. He did a really good job with the Padres and the Yankees in the last few years. They re-signed Evaldi, and they add also the left-handed pitchers Robert Garcia. So they definitely added to their bats. They added to their bullpen. They solidified that rotation. In my opinion, they might need one more arm there. Martin Perez would have made a good fit, but I don't think that that fit is actually there. So probably Martin Perez will actually go into the National League like he did last year with the Pirates. Another humongous signing in this offseason was for the D-backs. They land one of the most coveted starters in the market this year in Colton Burns. Again, there was a lot of more money offered in other places, but he decided to go to the desert. Some people say it's because of taxes. Some people say it's because of he's going to be joining one of the best rotations, if not the best rotation in the bigs at the moment. But, well, he's heading to the desert there. And they also add Canadian first baseman Josh Naylor on a trade that happened earlier this month. The White Sox, well, they definitely need to improve. There's no question about it. There's no way but up for the White Sox. They add infielder Josh Rojas that was with the Mariners last year. They add left-handed Tyler Gilbert and left-hander Cam Buster. Obviously wish them the best, but there's a lot of work to do there. Saying that they're in the rebuilding era in south side of Chicago might be an understatement at this point. Going to the north side of Chicago and talking about the Cubs, they traded for Kyle Tucker. Huge addition there, in my opinion. Humongous upgrade comparing him and Bellinger that was recently traded to the Yankees. I think Kyle Tucker is way more complete of a player, a leader in the dugout. So humongous change there for the Cubbies. They also add right-hander Cody Pottet, left-hander Matthew Boyd. Definitely have seen him do a great job with the Guardians recently. Obviously had great years with Detroit. And they also added catcher Carson Kelly and Vidal Brujan from the Marlins. So they definitely made some interesting moves there. I think that position there for the offseason is there for the taking. So I think the Cubs, moving the right pieces, I think they have a fighting chance. The Astros, they never go quiet. They landed, in my opinion, one of the best first basemen available in the market in Christian Walker. If I remember correctly, they gave them a 3-year deal. Huge upgrade there. That was definitely one of those positions that left a void there after Gurriel went downhill in his career and was not producing as they were expecting him to. Same thing with Jose Abreu, that obviously didn't work as expected in Houston. So they add Christian Walker that definitely is going to boost their home run power in Houston. They add also via trade Isaac Paredes and Cam Smith. So I don't know, the Astros are here to stay. No word yet on Alex Bregman. We don't know if he's actually going to go. Apparently, the Tigers are all chips in for him to actually go to the Motor City, but no news as of yet. Going into Cleveland, the Guardians bring back Carlos Santana. Again, this seems to be the trend of the offseason. They leave more money on the table, but they choose to go back to familiar grounds. Apparently, the Mariners had way more money on the table, more time. I think he had a 2-year deal with the Mariners, but he chose to go back to Cleveland. Of course, that feels or explains that trade that they did with the D-backs that sent Josh Naylor to the D-backs. And also, they added a right-hander, Slade Ciccione, to Cleveland. In terms of the Brewers, they traded their closer, Devin Williams, and they got back Nestor Cortez. I think Nestor is going to help them out a lot in terms of eating innings, which is his strength there. I don't know if it was one of those, like they actually got prospects and whatnot, but in terms of the major league level, I don't think there was one of those things that it was a huge return on that trade for Devin Williams, but we'll see how that works out. Obviously, he had the blown save on the last game of the season that eliminated them in any postseason contention. I don't know if that had anything to do with it because he's been doing a great job with the Brew Crew. So we'll see how that works out. The Phillies, active. They definitely are hungry for that championship. They were one of the favorites. In my opinion, they were the favorites to win the National League last year. They fell short. So what did they do? They went out and got a lot of people as well. They got outfielder Max Kepler. He played with the Twins last couple of years. They added right-hander Joe Ross. They traded for somebody they've been after for years now in Luzardo from the Marlins. In that trade, they got Luzardo and Paul McIntosh. They also added another pitcher in Aaron Cobbs, and they added a huge piece, which I never thought it was going to leave Toronto, but he declined his option early in the offseason, and Canadian closer Jordan Romano, it's going to the Phillies. Is he going to close? Maybe. He might be a setup there, build up as a closer. We don't know yet, but that's definitely a huge addition there for the Phillies and huge loss for the Toronto Blue Jays because they definitely need a lot of bullpen arms, and losing that one, it's definitely a big blow to the Toronto fans. Going into Cincinnati, Jose Trevino, the catcher, he did a great job with the Yankees last couple of years, but now with Wells behind the plate, I know he became expensible, so he got traded to Cincinnati. In that trade, that's where they got the Puerto Rican fireballer Cruz and catcher. And also they signed reliever Brady Singer. He did a great job with Kansas City last few years, so I think that was a great addition. That team is poised to do something well. Remember, they got Terry Francona as their manager this year, so that's definitely going to help them out in a lot of ways down in Cincinnati. The Angels, we all know that they need a lot of work. They did some minor tweaks here and there. They signed Dakota Hudson to a minor league deal. And they got via trade outfielder Chucky Robinson. He was with the White Sox, if I'm not mistaken. So they added a couple of pieces, but not a whole lot of mind-blowing moves from the Angels. They were said that they were in a lot of trades and whatnot, but nothing crystallized at that point. The Colorado Rockies now, they added utility player Tyler Estrada. He actually was with the San Francisco Giants for the last couple of years. They gave Austin Nola a minor league contract, so they only did some minor changes there. A couple of moves in the minor leagues, but nothing to write home about. And we're moving on to San Francisco, with San Francisco being offering a lot of money to a lot of players. But the only one that being able to actually land is Willie Adames. Huge land, of course. But in my opinion, losing Snail, Robbie Ray not performing the way he has been performing when he was in Seattle or in Toronto, definitely Adames feels a little bit short of the mark in terms of additions, but they still active. I know the offseason is not over yet, but they land a big bat in Willie Adames. Going into the Twins, they add in a couple of minor league players. One of them that, in my opinion, is going to make the big club at some point, which is Mike Ford. Big left-handed bat. They can come off the bench at any time. And Mickey Gosper, that came from Boston. He played second base last year for Boston. They definitely can do the job there. A lot of moves there to be made by the Twins. Moving to the Miami Marlins, they add Eric Waxman. Just a minor piece there compared to the other moves that other teams have made in that division. Unfortunately, the Marlins, I don't think they're going to go very far this time around with the talent they have on the field. Nothing against those guys. It's just one of those things that division is very, very talent packed, and it's going to be a little bit tough to compete in that division. The Nationals added a lot of people as well. They traded for Nate Lowe from Texas. They bring back Josh Bell. I'm assuming that's going to be the 1-2 to play first base for the Nats. Maybe one of them is going to come off the bench. One of them is actually going to be their DH. I don't know, but they have a lot of power there on the first base bag. They have re-signed Trevor Williams, and also they have added a very big arm. Hopefully he stays healthy. It was something that he couldn't actually do with the Atlanta Braves. Canadian right-hander Mike Soroka. Definitely a huge addition if he can actually stay healthy. For Pittsburgh, they bring back their son, Andrew McCutcheon, and at infielder Emmanuel Valdez. So big changes for the fans, but I think they need to do a little bit more work in terms of adding to be competitive in that division. In terms of the Tampa Bay Rays, Danny Jansen, the ex-Blue Jays catcher, signed with them, and they also added a minor league deal for Eloy Jimenez. Again, it's one of those guys that even though it's a minor league deal, he has a lot of injuries, but when he's on the field and healthy, he can definitely be a change maker there in Tampa. And you guys actually know what Tampa does. I know somebody comes in, the backs a $1.20 and an ERA of 10, and all of a sudden are competing for Cy Young and Silver Sluggers there. So, well, more on the pitching side than the batting side, but you never know what can actually happen there. In terms of Baltimore, they made a lot of changes. Some of them make sense. Some of them are kind of interesting changes. They were in the Calvin Burns saga there for a while. But of course, as I mentioned before, he went to the desert, didn't resign with Baltimore, but they added Canadian outfielder Tyler O'Neill. They bring in veteran pitcher Charlie Morton, that he did an amazing job with the Braves last couple of years. They bring Gary Sanchez, which that's one of the signs that I definitely do not understand, other than being a DH and coming off the bench, because it's definitely not going to be catching a whole lot in Baltimore with Rushman behind the plate there. And they signed Japanese pitcher Tomoyoki Sugano from the Nippon League. So definitely made some additions there in that very competitive American League East that definitely they need to be star-packed to compete in that division. The Braves have been fairly quiet this offseason. They have lost huge pieces, starting with Max Fried. They have added so far reported David Daniel, a pitcher there. So not a whole lot of moves in Atlanta, but you never know. With Alex Antopoulos there, he always kind of seems to pull those trades at the last minute. And we wrap up with the local team, the Toronto Blue Jays. They trade for Andres Jimenez, which is, I don't know, one of those trades that not a lot of people were looking for in Cleveland. But they bring into Toronto that piece in the middle of the infield to work with Bo Bichette. Brings a huge bat. Obviously, this particular trade benefits Toronto on the offensive side and defensive side as well. And of course, helps the Cleveland Guardians in terms of offloading his heavy contract, because it's back end heavy. So if I remember correctly, we're looking at about $60 to $80 million contract left on that contract. And they add bullpen help with Josh Walker. So a lot of trades, a lot of moves that make sense, a lot of moves that you go, what? But definitely we'll be discussing a little bit in terms of who the winners are and why would those be in a couple of seconds. So after that avalanche of information, now we analyze who do we think that they're the winners that they did the best moves so far in the offseason. The offseason is definitely not over, and there's still going to be a lot of moves to be made in the next 4 to 6 weeks leading up to spring training. But in our opinion, the Yankees definitely made the best additions and subtractions from their team. Bringing Max Fried to combine with Derek Cole at the top of that rotation, definitely it's hard to beat. Bringing Goldie to play first base, to bring Bellinger to play center field, and move Aaron Judge to his natural position in right field. We'll know what happened at the World Series. Him playing at center field. I don't know if it was pressure, but in my opinion, Aaron Judge, with all due respect, is right fielder, not a center fielder. Bellinger can provide that support there at center field, or Dominguez, depending how they want to go about it. They can go Judge in right, Bellinger in center field, and Dominguez in left. Goldie at first base. They have to figure out still who's going to play second base with the departure of Gleyber Torres. Obviously, they have Volpe at short. Third base still a question mark. I know they were pushing for Breckman. I don't think that's going to happen, but they also have Cabrera at third base. They can do the job there. Obviously, Trevino became expensible after Wells did such a great job behind the plate. Didn't produce in the postseason, but it was his first full postseason. So there's a lot to improve there. So, but the Yankees, I think they did the best with what they had after they lost Soto to the Mets. They added to the back end of that bullpen with Fernando Cruz. Great job with Cincinnati. They added Devin Williams from the Brew Crew. They re-signed Loaiza, so their back end of that bullpen is it's solid there. So the Bronx should be happy with the moves that this team did in the offseason, especially after losing Soto. In my opinion, I don't think Soto was going to go to the Yankees anyways. Not because of the drama around the whole chemistry in the dugout. It's just because there's a lot of moving parts there. Signing Soto, you're locking yourself to sign other players, and the Yankees actually had a lot of I don't want to call them holes in their lineup, but they definitely have things that they had to address. And by bringing Soto and the luxury tax wouldn't have actually allowed them to make those additions. In terms of the Dodgers, of course, we talked the Yankees. We have to talk about the Dodgers. Obviously, they're the team to beat again with bringing back Teoscar Hernandez. They brought their closer back and Teason. They add Korean superstar infielder Sean Kim. They signed him a 3-year deal. They still have Lux. They have Munzie. They can go back and forth between that and third base. So we'll see what happens there in La La Land. But they brought Snail to that rotation as well. So they added a lot of pieces there. Conforto, that's another left-handed bat that can definitely help them out. I don't know what Conforto's role is going to be in that lineup. Probably play left, but I'm not sure what Conforto's spot in that particular lineup would be. But definitely a huge bat there for the Dodgers. Third, the Mets. Of course, they threw a lot of money at this offseason, signing Soto to one of the largest free agent contracts in Major League history. No deferred money. So they're definitely pushing hard for a championship there under Carlos Mendoza. They bring back Manaya. They added, in my opinion, what they needed the most. They brought Clay Holmes, which there's talk that he's gonna try to be a starter opener. Not sure if that is the right move, in my opinion, for the Mets, but I'm not the GM. I'm just one of those guys that definitely tried to analyze and bring my perspective to this. They added Siri, in my opinion, is going to be one of those late inning additions to the outfield. They bring Montes to actually help that rotation. So great additions there that should bring them over the hump. But again, they still have to beat the Dodgers in that National League Championship Series. So we'll see how that actually works out. And also the Phillies are huge there as well, which is the next team that we're going to be talking about. They add Lusardo and Romano to this mix for the Phillies. I think that those are great additions for the Phillies. They also bring Max Kepler. Definitely can help them out as a left-handed bat that they needed. Another team that I think did a great job in terms of adding arms to a depleted pitching staff are the Boston Red Sox. They added Walker Buehler. They added Crochet from the White Sox. Just those two additions are going to make them so much better and so much more competitive in the American League East. They add Sandoval, but remember, Sandoval is coming back from Tommy John, so he might not start with the team, as far as I understand. He's going to start after May, come back from Tommy John surgery. They added Chapman to that back end of the bullpen. So there's some additions there that definitely helped them out. And in terms of the other two that I think they're in the top of that list of great moves in the offseason are the Arizona Diamondbacks, even though they didn't add a whole lot of talent, but just the fact that they added Corbin Burns to that juggernaut of a rotation that the D-backs have. It's a huge upgrade for the D-backs. So if they can bet on their rotation with the addition of Corbin Burns, they're going to be really hard to battle for the National League West. Again, the National League West has been owned by the Dodgers for the last few years, but in terms of finishing runner-up in that division there, I don't think it's going to be a problem, and they can go very far with that rotation in the postseason. And last but not least, in terms of the standouts of the trades are the Rangers. They added Joe Paddock to that lineup. Jake Berger, that definitely can do the job at third base, at first base. They have a lot of depth there. Kale Higashioka, they can be their backup catcher. And Robert Garcia is another arm that can definitely help them out. So Rangers definitely added good pieces to this particular the offseason so far. In terms of the losers, quote unquote, or the ones that have not made enough moves, in my opinion, to compete for this offseason are the Atlanta Braves after losing Max Fried. They haven't added much power there. They lost Soroka to free agency as well. I know he's been dealing with a lot of injuries last few years, but definitely one of those guys that you want to keep around. They lost Morton, which has been their powerhouse horse in terms of giving them at least 5 innings every outing. So those are 3 pieces. They're huge in terms of that. Obviously, Chris Sale is there for another year. Cy Young winner. But as we all know with Chris Sale, you can be the Cy Young one year, but then pitch 3 innings next year. And obviously he didn't pitch in the offseason last year. So there's question marks there for the Atlanta Braves. The other one that I think I understand the reasons why, being a salary being the key one there, are the Cleveland Guardians. Getting rid of Josh Naylor and moving Andres Jimenez to Toronto. They were pieces that definitely were going to go up in price and they wouldn't be able to actually keep them. But Andres Jimenez was already under contract for 4 more years, if I remember correctly. And for them to actually let him go and trade it for Toronto and then right away trade that talent to Pittsburgh just for getting some low leverage situation pitchers. So I think the Guardians, obviously they still have a lot of talent. I mean, obviously they went really far in the postseason, but Andres Jimenez was definitely a huge part of that run, and same with Josh Naylor. Seemed to be one of those guys that combined with Jose Ramirez pump that dugout and it kept everybody in check in terms of providing that power there. Yeah, we'll see how it kind of works out. Another one that I don't know if it would actually be a bad move, good move, is the Detroit Tigers. In my opinion, they should have actually gone more, Bregman. Apparently, they're all in; they're not out. But I think they had enough options at second base to go for a third baseman instead of Gleyber Torres. In my opinion, I thought Gleyber Torres made more sense to Toronto, but of course, after Andres Jimenez actually joined the Toronto Blue Jays, obviously those moves actually didn't make sense anymore. And apparently he wants to play second base and not third base, but we'll see how it actually works out. In my opinion, they need a little bit more pitching, more on the starter role than the middle relievers, because of it, they lean pretty heavily on the middle relievers there in the postseason. They did an amazing job. I thought they were the most improved team by far in the 2024 campaign. But I think they're a little bit quiet after that success of last year and having School being the ace of that rotation. If they had one more power arm there, I think they can actually push for that American League Central that it's always up for grabs lately. So we'll see how it goes. And last but not least, the White Sox. They made some move. They added Josh Rojas from the Mariners. Josh did a really good job with the Mariners, but they need a lot. In my opinion, they're just basically confirming that they're rebuilding. They're not in the market for big free agents right now. They can still get some cheap options there that they can actually add to that White Sox team that obviously broke the record for losses. They definitely need to improve quickly because to actually see stadiums with only 4,000 people, it's very, very sad. And like if they continue that way, they're going to have to. I wouldn't say they're going to have to move, but they definitely have to do something so the fans can keep coming to the stadium. So that's our summary of winners and losers in terms of what's going so far for the off season leading into the 2025 season. We'll bring you more moves as they become available for you, whether it's here through the podcast or Talking Baseball Thursdays on Instagram, where we give you that flash summary of the week of baseball in 90 seconds. So hopefully you like that segment. So far, we have actually got pretty good feedback on that segment because everybody's in a rush. So having something under 3 minutes, start to finish, in terms of trades, signings, minor league news, and so on, people have actually liked it quite a bit. So we're going to be moving into our next analysis, which is the regular season. So I'll give you guys a break. We'll be right back.
Regular season.
And now we're going to be analyzing two teams in this next two segments of the podcast. We're going to be analyzing the state of the diamond for Canada's team, the Toronto Blue Jays, and my neighbors to the west, the Seattle Mariners. They definitely have to find that identity that they're lacking. It showed last year, finishing last in the American League East. They seem to actually be a team without that identity of like either sluggers or the pitchers. Of course, they have got a lot of bad news in terms of the pitching side, with Manoah not being the Manoah that everybody was expecting him to be. But of course, every team goes through the same things. Like a lot of people say, Primary River, you still have to suck it up. And if you want to compete in the American League East, you have to have pitching for days. And Romano had his difficulties to wrap up the year as well. Not only that, he's not going to be back. So there's some question marks, especially on the bullpen side of things. I think the rotation is going to be just fine. The reason why I say that is they have Rodriguez to be the fifth starters. I think Francis is ready to take that step forward in that rotation. Gossman he's being a horse there. Barrios, of course, it's the epitome of success and health in that rotation, not only for the Twins, but also for the Blue Jays. So you have Gossman, Barrios, Francis, and you got Rodriguez. In my opinion, the question mark of that rotation will be Bassett, not because of his performance, is because, in my opinion, he's going to be that training bait to get bullpen help, in my opinion. So if he comes back, obviously I'd rather see him as a fifth starter. But I think he's one of those guys that the Jays are going to try to put in the trading block moving forward to actually try to get some bullpen help, which is, in my opinion, what the Blue Jays need the most. Of course, they don't have a ton of starter depth, but I think they're hurting a little bit more on the reliever front. Every team has drama, but no bigger drama than the bloody saga drama. Is he going to sign? Is he going to stay? Is he not going to stay? In my opinion, the Blue Jays are going to make the push for him to stay in Toronto. He's the face of the franchise. They have to kind of make the push. The question is, now that you bring Andres Jimenez, a proven second baseman, that can fill the hole that Marcus Semien left a couple of years ago, which was a huge blow for the Blue Jays. Is it going to make a difference? I think it will make a difference in terms of getting that chemistry back in the infield. They need another third baseman as well, but I think Vladdy signing in Toronto, it just makes sense for the not only for on the field but off the field. With he being born in, even though he's Dominican, he was actually born in Montreal. So and everybody loves him here in Canada. Again, it's one of those things. And no, I don't think he's going to be going to the Yankees. He has actually said it himself that he doesn't want to go to the Yankees. But again, this is a business; anything can happen. So that's definitely going to make a huge difference one way or the other. The other saga in Toronto, it's the Bobby Shett saga. He's also a free agent at the end of the year. So the question is, do you train him now to get pitching, to get better on that side, and then you move Andres Jimenez to shortstop, which is not his natural position when he came up to the majors? But I wouldn't, in my opinion, as a baseball fan, is you play at least half of the season to see where he comes back from, because last year was a down year for Bichette standards. And then you have Vladdy, Jimenez, and Bo play for half the season. And obviously, if things don't work out, you still have the trade deadline to pull the trigger on a few trades. And then you definitely will get your value if you're not going to actually sign back with the Blue Jays. So at least the Blue Jays franchise will then restock one way or the other. I know Vladdy gave the deadline for the beginning of spring training for the contract extension negotiations. So we'll see how that actually evolves, because obviously, depending the money amount that they give Vladdy, will it be room for Bo to stay with Toronto? I'm not sure. And also the money that apparently the Blue Jays are pushing to get Santander, which would be a huge upgrade, because obviously if you have a lineup with Vladdy, Bo, Jimenez, Santander, Kirk coming back to be the starter of that team. Varsho has been doing a pretty good job. Of course, he doesn't bat for average, but he definitely can hit your home run when needed. Then Springer can move to left field, or and just kind of take the pressure off of him, the leader of spot. So there's a lot of moves there that that can actually make a difference there. In terms of the back end of the bullpen, in my opinion, that's where the Blue Jays are the weakest. There's a reason why they finished fifth in the division last year. Lucian Romano, and bringing back Jimmy Garcia, that was actually traded to the Mariners last year in the trade deadline, makes sense. In my opinion, he'll get the first crack at closing for the Blue Jays next year. But obviously, you need a setup at least to be there. A couple of guys are coming back that had down years for personal reasons, and also they had injuries. So there's a lot of question marks in that middle to end of the game bullpen help. Hopefully, the Blue Jays front office can bring I don't know, maybe a Tanner Scott to help out there. And push at least maybe not the division, but push for a wild card spot, because obviously we have to be realistic from a juggernaut point of view. We're going to have Baltimore and the Yankees, after the new additions that they made, pushing for that top spot on the division. Tampa Bay never goes away. Of course, they have a different issues to deal with this year, not having a stadium. Boston is not going to go away. They added really good arms to that rotation. So it's not going to be easy. It's never easy in the American League East. So it'll be interesting how that actually comes about, and the future of the Blue Jays. They can go that route, or they can just go, well, you know what? We cannot get Santander. If for whatever reason they cannot get Santander, and trade Vladdy and Bo and restock from the ground up, and then see where it goes. But I really don't see that happening. The only reason why I don't see that happening, not because of the current moves that the GMs have actually made, is because the Blue Jays have shown the willingness of signing big name talent. I know they were in on Ohtani a couple of years ago. They were reported to be in the Soto saga. They were reported to be in the Colbin Burns push. Apparently, they were one of the top offers in the market for him, but he chose to go to the desert for apparently tax reasons, and also wanted to join that rotation there. So money, I don't think is an issue for the Toronto Blue Jays, but they definitely may have to make a decision now in terms of where they're going to pivot. Are they going to pivot into a contender, or are they going to pivot into a 500 team so they can keep their talent in place, or they're going to pivot and trade to restock at that point? Because unfortunately, that's something that showed last year on the field, finishing last in the American League East. Even though they were not out the whole year, they definitely dipped in the middle of the year in their bullpen. Couldn't hold a lot of leads, and they lost a lot of one-run games. And at the very end, they brought some of their prospects. They did a pretty good job, but they had players that the Babe Schneider had a down year compared to his debut season. Bichette had a down year. So a lot of pieces there. That one guy that I think is going to get a lot of playing time is Baroa. He earned it last year with his defense, maybe a lot late in replacement to play third base or even shortstop, depending how Bo comes in. Obviously, Bo never wants to be out of the lineup at any given time. So we'll see. There's a lot of moving parts. Barger, it's there and did a pretty good job in left field. But if they get Santander, I think they have their outfield solidified with Santander in right, Barger in center, and probably Springer in left, or depending whatever option that they want to go to. But I think that that addition of Santander will be huge, not only for the morale of the team, but also the morale for those free agents that are in the fence in terms of, well, do I want to go to Toronto? Is that a contender team? Is that the real deal? That Santander signing, it's more than just adding Santander. I think it's adding momentum to a team that needs all the momentum they can get to get out of the cellar of the American League East. So next, we're going to go into the All-Star break. We'll give you a hint of our trivia question of the week, and we'll talk to you about our sponsors, and we'll be right back to talk about the Mariners.
All-Star break.
And here we are at the All-Star break, where everybody can take just a quick break and listen to the trivia hint for the question that we had for you guys today. The hint: he played for the Astros, he played for the Mets. In my opinion, he helped the Astros the most in the postseason. He was Mets legend. He also played a lot of years in Kansas City. This was one of those guys that when he came up to plate, he was there to drive runs. So that's a hint for our trivia question of the day. And as promised, I'll be talking to you guys about our sponsors, which are Accessorios Corp. For your shipping needs, door to door to Venezuela, whether it's by air or by boat or any way they can actually get it to you, they'll find a way to get it to Venezuela and to your loved ones. You can actually make your purchases online and send it directly to their warehouse, and they make sure to pack it as tight as they can, eliminating all that false space that other companies charge you for. So they're known for their slogan, the catchers of the phantom volume. So make sure to contact them at Accessorios Corp. Our next sponsor is the people of Pinto Web, the online portal in Venezuela for all your needs and paint supplies, paint La Pinturita, which is one of their main household names that we'll actually have there. They also have the matching system if you go directly to their stores in Venezuela, so they can match exactly the color that you want, the color of your baseball team. You can go there and they can match it for you, and you can paint and do everything that you need. Make sure to go to their internet portal. Details are pintoweb.shop in Instagram. And last but not least, Edgar Car Sales in Florida. If you're looking for a car, Edgar will make sure to find a way to get you your dream car in Miami, in Florida. He's definitely going to be there for you, finding a way to get you your dream car. So those are our sponsors. Thank you very much to them. Make sure to look and follow them and look for their information. They're there to help you out. Thank you very much for them to put in their trust in us to bring you this podcast. So we're gearing up for the trade deadline segment where we're going to be talking about my neighbors to the west, the Seattle Mariners.
Trade deadline.
Well, we made it to the trade deadline section. Up here, we're going to be talking about the state of the diamond of the Seattle Mariners. Being so close to the Mariners, definitely I follow them closely. And what keeps ringing back and forth is the Mariners are pushed to the limit in terms of their budget, or pretty close to what they can actually afford in the open market at the moment. And so the question is, do they pivot now and start trading their start pitchers, which is their strength of the team, or they just kind of trying to do trades? Obviously, Dipoto, it's been known to be the magician of trades as of late. They've been very, very, very quiet in terms of signings. They're being rumored to be in a lot of free agents. Apparently, they had the highest offer on Carlos Santana before he signed in Cleveland, because they definitely need help at first base. Obviously, Ty France is no longer there. So apparently they've been in a lot of free agents to play first base, to play third base. They lost Josh Rojas. That's a big blow in terms of their defense there. So the question is, where did they pivot? Do they pivot on trading some of the cash that they have assigned to some of their starters, like Castillo, or do they just go with the quote unquote low hanging fruit in terms of those free agents that haven't actually made a whole lot of noise for a lot of people? Basically, buy low with the expectations of those players to have monster years and help the Mariners. Because the thing is, the Mariners last year, it was definitely one of those seasons that it was kind of hard to explain. They were leading the way for most of the season. Their rotation and back end of the bullpen with Munoz in the back end of the bullpen was completely lights out. But their power surge completely, somebody pulled the plug on their power sword, and wow, it was amazing how they ended the season, and they needed a jolt to be able to compete in that division, especially with the additions that the Astros have made, having Christian Walker be added to that roster, the additions that Texas have made. So the Mariners definitely have to make some additions on the bat side. I think their bullpen rotation and back end of that bullpen, it's totally fine. It's one of the best, if not the best, rotation in the American League West at the moment. So we'll see. We'll see where they pivot. There've been a lot of rumors on Castillo being traded to Boston, but apparently Boston doesn't want to let go of Casas, because obviously that's the main target for the Mariners right now, is for Casas to come over for a long time and play first base for them. So the return on Castillo has been a little soft in terms of that side. We don't know. They haven't actually announced if it was because of talent-wise coming to the Mariners, or because of the price tag that his contract has. I'm not sure. I think that's where the Mariners can pivot. It's just focusing on trying to get as much as they can from Castillo. I don't think they should actually let go any of their top, their Wong or Gilbert. I think they have that covered. And also the price tag of those guys are not exactly high yet. So they definitely should leverage that power that they have, but they definitely need to add a bat or two, at least at first base or at third base. You're going to have Leo Rivas play shortstop with Crawford back and forth, playing second base. So you definitely have the defense up the middle to do the job for your pitchers, but they definitely need some power to help Carl Riley to carry this offense moving forward. Those options that I was actually mentioning before, in my opinion, one of those guys that is flying under the radar, a lot of people are not giving him enough credit, like Johan Moncada. He can actually play third base. You buy low with a high expectation. If he can give you 20 home runs and maybe 50, 60 RBIs, you're definitely upgrading with you currently have at third base with the Mariners after losing Josh Rojas. Another option that can help Riley, if Riley wants to play first base a day or not, you can point at Elias Diaz or maybe Grandal, which is a left-handed bat. Diaz is a right-handed bat. So that's one of those things that you can actually look into, because, of course, right now they're still free agents. They're not one of those guys that are going to be looking for a mega contract. That emergency fund that the Mariners are running under right now might not be affected as much, and they might have some wiggle room to actually add those guys with the expectation to buy low, sell high if need be. Another option, they can bring back Justin Turner. Justin Turner did a really good job after being traded from the Blue Jays last year, but he's aging. So the question is, do you want to bring a veteran presence just to actually play first base? Or do you want to use one of your current options that you have from the minors and bring them up? That's just another option there. They can also look at Mountcastle. Of course, Mountcastle is one of those guys that definitely going to be on the higher end of that budget that they have left for the Mariners. So it might be an option on paper, but money-wise might not be the right option there based on their budget constraints that they have. Or the other thing that has actually been sounding pretty loudly is a trade with Detroit for Torkelson, because with the addition of Gleyber Torres, apparently their current second baseman will move to first base. And Torkelson can actually be one of those guys, again, that you can buy low and sell high in that sense. Maybe he just needs a little bit of a tweak in terms of that drama. So a lot of work to be done for the Mariners at this point. I think, again, they definitely have the best rotation, bullpen, and back end sides in the American League West. I think they'll be totally fine. I'm definitely predicting a bounce back year from Julio Rodriguez, which had a good season. It's not that he had a bad season, but he definitely didn't have the season that everybody was expecting him to have. If they can add a couple of pieces here and there, like I mentioned, like a Moncada or Elias Diaz to kind of help off the bench, I think they'll be fine. They'll definitely be competitive enough to push for that American League West. And if they're actually close to that hunt, they might be able to add on during the training deadline. But it's definitely one of those things that they definitely need to address early enough, even though the Mariners are notorious for being great starters of the season and then they fade after the trade deadline. So I wouldn't be very shocked if they add after the season starts instead of before the season start, but definitely have some options, but also they have a lot of limitations, unfortunately, in terms of the budget restraints after the whole fiasco with TV stations and whatnot. So obviously their budgets have been reduced because of the profits have actually gone down quite a bit after those the root deals and all that kind of stuff of the TV station. So there's my analysis for the Mariners. Hopefully they can make those adjustments. I'll hopefully be there for opening day against the Athletics, reporting from the field. So and hopefully I can actually bring you a little bit more insight from the field when we get to opening day. But I don't know, hopefully the Mariners can actually get over the hump and add a couple of guys to that roster, because they're definitely within the window with that amazing rotation that they have. We're going to go into their next session, which is the postseason, where we talk about things outside baseball. We're going to be talking about Tampa Bay A's and also the discussion about Sosa apologizing to the Cubs. I don't know what it's all about. So, all right, we'll be right back.
Season.
And we are back, going into the postseason drama section. So here we're going to be talking about the apology from Sammy Sosa to the Cubs and the fans. So they can be welcomed back into the arms of the organization. He posted on social media the letter that he wrote to the Cubs organization, apologizing for not doing the right things, quote unquote, when he left the Cubs. Obviously not openly admitting that he used PEDs, but I don't know, it was one of those read between the lines in terms of I left in the wrong way. I left not when I should have or how I should have. But apparently the Cubs have accepted that apology and have welcomed them with open arms into the organization. What does that mean? Is he going to be a coach? Is he going to be one of those celebrity coaches that a lot of teams have to kind of help their hitters and whatnot? Not 100% sure. It was definitely one of those news that came out of left field after so many years of speculations in terms of why he left the Cubs, why he didn't resign with the Cubs, what happened there, why he was never welcomed back in any of the Cubs events. So it was kind of one of those topics that was dead in the water and nobody was talking about it. I think they talked more about his color pigmentation on his skin than him going back to the Cubs. But of course, I know this is something that definitely going to have to be brought up into the forefront for those Cubs fans that are listening to us. So So I guess Sammy is back with the Cubs organization. What role, what expectation, we don't know yet, but it definitely made waves in the social media world. We'll see how if he comes up at spring training as a hitting coach of some kind or working in minors somewhere. So we'll see. But definitely one of those news that kind of left everybody scratching their head going, what kind of apology is this? So it was not very clear. So moving on from that, we have to talk about the Tampa Bay Rays and the A's. Starting with the Tampa Bay Rays, obviously, you guys all heard what happened in Florida with the hurricanes that basically destroyed the roof of the Tropicana Field. So they have already announced that they're not going to be playing for the foreseeable future in Tropicana Field. They're going to be using the Yankees spring training facility in Tampa. So that's going to be an interesting approach there. So obviously, the Rays have their spring training facility in Florida as well, but obviously they don't have the amenities that are required for Major League Park. The only two facilities that can provide that in the Tampa area are the Blue Jays and the Yankees. The Blue Jays recently upgraded their facilities because obviously with the COVID season, they had to play in Dunedin for a period of time before they went to Buffalo and back to Toronto. And the other option was actually the Yankees, which is a mini Yankee Stadium at the end of the day. And they have all the amenities that the major league teams would actually require. So they have a struck deal with the Yankees to at least temporarily use that facility in Tampa. So the question is that going to be one of those things that is going to be the test of the franchise that they need to move closer to town if it's packed every night? Because there's definitely a lot of Tampa Bay fans, but the issue is that long drive to St. Petersburg to watch a game is definitely a lot. I've made that drive a lot of times with friends of mine. They're diehard Tampa Bay Ray fans, and it's definitely not an easy thing to do. There's also the conversation that they're one of the main reasons they're not fixing the roof so quickly is because that money that they needed to use for that, it was already allocated to the new stadium. So the question is that money really going to go there? Or is this something that it proves to the city of Tampa that they need to be closer to the city, like, I don't know, the airport city, or they need to pull the plug and actually go somewhere else like Nashville or back to Montreal, which I doubt it. But Nashville has been begging and pushing for a brand new franchise. You never know. You never know what will happen. But for Rays fans that are listening to us, obviously they're going to be enjoying how close the games are going to be to downtown Tampa. And in terms of the A's going into Sacramento, the question would be, at least the reason why I bring up this element is going into Sacramento. Of course, it's something new for the people in Sacramento. They're going to be playing in a minor league facility while they finalize their move to Las Vegas. Is a full stadium going to make a difference in terms of boosting the morale of the team that have been playing basically in front of an empty stadium the last few years in Oakland? Or is it going to be more of the same? The ownership is not going to put enough money until they make it to Vegas. Is the crowd factor going to carry into Vegas, or is it going to carry into possible push into a division series? They definitely have a great team. A lot of people don't give the A's the credit they deserve. They have an amazing closer that everybody wants in the trade deadline. They added Severino. That I'm not sure if Severino is definitely there to stay or it's just a bargaining chip for the trade deadline, so they can actually get the prospects to get them over the hump while they get to Vegas. So will be interesting, but definitely Sacramento will be enjoying Major League Baseball for a few years. We don't know if we can call them the Sacramento A's for the time being, or we just call them A's. As far as I understand, based on their social media, it's just the A's right now. And then we'll see how much information we can get. But as of right now, it will be interesting to see if this move of facilities in full crowds every night in Sacramento will make an impact on the players, because obviously he makes a ginormous difference playing, I don't know, with a full sold out crowd as playing with, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 fans. And you see them in Chicago. But Chicago's a different, I don't know, boat altogether. It was because obviously the embarrassment of losing so many games in one season. But the A's, they definitely have the talent on the field to compete at least for the division, or at least a wild card in that American League West. That, in my opinion, is up for grabs. Anybody can actually win that. Maybe not the Angels. But the Mariners, they definitely have the arms to push for it. They need a couple of bats. The Astros are always going to be there in the hunt. I think they're the team to beat, in my opinion. Texas have brought reinforcements on their side, so they're going to be like the Texas teams are going to be pushing for that top spot. But the A's have nothing to lose, so maybe this full crowd factor might change their ways and start winning. And they're a very streaky team, so anything can happen from that side. Yep. So that actually wraps up our postseason drama section of this podcast, and we're gonna wrap it up in the next session for the World Series. We'll give you a high level summary of what we talked about in this podcast, and we'll give you the answer to our trivia question of the day.
World Series.
And we have come to the last segment of the podcast, the World Series. So here's a summary. Best additions of the offseason so far: Yankees, Dodgers, Phillies, and Rangers. Looking at this trajectory, I think we might see another Yankees Dodgers rematch in the World Series, but you never know. Never count out the Mets and the Phillies in the National League. So anything can happen. It's very early at this point. In terms of the losers, by far the Marlins. They haven't spent one penny in this offseason. The White Sox have definitely not added enough to actually get out of the triple-digit losses they had last year. And in terms of the ones that have been active this offseason, but I don't think they have actually done enough to justify the moves, are the Guardians. But we'll see. They definitely have a good core of players that can carry them over in that division. In terms of the state of the diamond for the Blue Jays, in my opinion, they either push for Vladdy and Bo, like not trading them and then just adding to the roster. They definitely have to add to the bullpen, or they just let it ride and then just see how much they can actually get at the trade deadline for both of them, and then hope for the best in the offseason. But the key thing there would be the addition of Santander, which can change the minds of some of the free agents like Flaherty. They're going to be one of the great additions for the rotation, and push Rodriguez to be the long man out in the bullpen, helping the bullpen and not of the rotation side. That's in terms of the Blue Jays. In terms of the Mariners, they need bats. That's the bottom line. And I think where they are right now, based on their budget constraints, they definitely need to find that hidden gem they can buy low and sell high in the future, like Moncada. They can actually have a turnaround year. Even go as far as going Jose Abreu. They had a monster year in Puerto Rico this winter. I don't know. He might be able to sign fairly cheap and help them at first base. Elias Diaz can kind of help behind the plate with Kyle Riley playing a little bit more DH and give them a couple of days off and have a good bat there. Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of things, but the key thing there is they need bats, and they might have to dip into their wealth of pitching in Seattle. In terms of outside the stadium, well, the Rays will enjoy full crowds in Tampa while they are playing their Yankees facility in Tampa. For how long? We don't know. It can be a year, it can be two, or it can be the bye-bye to the Tampa Bay Rays. We never know. But for those ones that are in the Tampa Bay area, they're definitely going to be enjoying having their Rays closer. In terms of the trivia questions, obviously the hints were this player was huge for the Mets. He was huge for the Astros in the postseason. Basically did it all. And is the only Latin-born player to have 300 homers and 300 steals. And who is that guy? Carlos Beltran. Was born in Manatee, Puerto Rico, and finished his illustrious career with 312 stolen bases, and 435 home runs. It's one of the reasons why he's in the ballot of the Hall of Fame. I think that he was basically the engine, especially for the Astros when they made their first major push to the postseason with the Mets. Did everything that they asked for with Kansas City as well. Of course, the reason why we picked this particular illustrious player is because we wanted to congratulate him because he was named the GM for the Puerto Rican team heading into the 2026 World Baseball Classic. He'll be the GM, and Yadi Molina would be the manager for that team, and Joey Sola will be the operations manager for that team. So we wish them good luck in assembling that great team. They definitely have the right people to do a great job in that particular tournament. So what do we have for you for our next podcast? We're going to be talking about the deferred money phenomenon in Major League Baseball. Obviously, there's a lot of players that they're asking for a lot of money, and the only response the team has right now is give them deferred money. So then the next topic that we're going to be talking about is about the outcome of the pitching arm injuries report released by Major League Baseball in terms of what they found, the things that are shocking from that report. There's a couple of things that definitely make you scratch your head in terms of where the injuries are happening, what time of the season they're happening, and things that some of the experts are saying. We're going to be talking about the MLB notable dates for 2025 in terms of when the All-Star Game, Tokyo Series, Mexico Series. There's a lot of interesting dates there for next year, and a little bit about the minor league farm systems, some of the moves for the Mariners single A affiliate that finally got a couple of things that they were waiting for. So don't forget every Thursday to check out the Talk Baseball Thursdays flash summary on Instagram at homeplate.33. Hopefully you like this podcast. We're open to feedback, whether it's via Instagram or YouTube, or let us know what you would like to hear us discuss in this podcast. Thanks for joining us on this very first Home Plate 33 podcast. And it's your pitch. Swing away and palagayeque. See you in the next at bat.